What's up, everybody? Welcome back. You've made it to the final unit. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I promise it's not an oncoming train. Smash that like button, and let's talk about voting rights. One of the big picture ideas in AP Gov is the expansion of democracy over time. And this has happened as a result of both legislation and constitutional amendments. This lesson focuses on how constitutional amendments have expanded opportunities, not just for voting, but for political participation more broadly. We're going to start with the 14th Amendment, which admittedly might seem like a strange place to start. We focused a lot on the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause back in Unit 3. But here, we want to point out the Citizenship Clause. This amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and this was done most specifically for people who were formerly enslaved. Just 2 years later, the 15th Amendment declared that race can no longer be a barrier to voting, so we commonly say that this amendment gave black men the right to vote, since women couldn't vote yet. Of course, from Unit 3 and your knowledge of US history, you're aware that many states effectively blocked black Americans from successfully exercising their franchise until the mid-1960s through policies like literacy tests, poll taxes, white primaries, and grandfather clauses, as well as unofficial policies like voter intimidation. During the Progressive era, the 17th Amendment established the direct election of senators, allowing people around the country to vote directly for their senators. Prior to this amendment, state legislatures were empowered to choose senators. Recall that originally the Senate's purpose was to represent the state, so it makes sense that he or she would have been chosen by the state government. This subtle change is actually a really big deal, moving the balance of power away from the states and toward the federal government. But our class focuses on the pro-democracy angle. Then in 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women's suffrage, which is a good thing, but it sounds horrible. It means the right to vote. So suffrage and franchise are both terms to describe having the right to vote. Women could already vote in some states, but this amendment meant that sex could no longer be a barrier to voting. Next, we fast forward to 1964 and the peak of the Civil Rights era with the 24th Amendment, which banned poll taxes, which had served as a structural barrier to voting, most commonly to black Americans. This amendment, in conjunction with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, led to a dramatic increase in black voter turnout, especially in southern states. Lastly, the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18 nationwide. As the slogans pointed out, if you're old enough to die for your country, you're old enough to vote for the politicians sending you to war. Turns out that's tough logic to argue with. Alright, now we're going to switch gears and talk about models of voting behavior. Basically what this means is that political scientists are trying to explain the ways that people vote, and we're going to discuss 4 common ways that people decide who to vote for. Rational choice voting is voting based on what is perceived to be in that person's best interest. For example, this could be a single mother voting for a candidate who promises to subsidize the cost of childcare, or a small business owner voting for a candidate who promises to lower taxes. Next, retrospective voting is voting based on the recent past, basically supporting the candidates already in power or voting them out of office. This is less about the challenger. It basically comes down to the voter making a judgment about those currently in office and whether they've earned the right to keep that office. For example, some people in 2020 might have voted for Biden not because they felt strongly about him, but because they didn't want a second Trump term. On the other hand, prospective voting is voting based on which party or candidate a person thinks will handle future issues better. So this could be deciding which person you'd rather nominate federal judges or handle a potential crisis or that sort of thing. This type of voting probably requires a little more political knowledge than some of the others. And lastly, straight ticket voting describes voting for only candidates from the same party for all the various public offices on the ballot. This one is pretty simple. The voter doesn't need to know much to determine their vote beyond Democrat good or Republican good, and they just go ahead and vote for the candidate from that party in all the races on the ballot. Alright, well that's it for the first lesson in Unit 5. Until next time, this has been a LaMoney production. Thanks again for watching, really hope this helped. If it did, help me out with that like button. Tell a friend that my videos are the secret to passing AP Gov, and I will see you in the next video.